At Starbound, we tell stories the human way, not with artificial voices or AI slop. I mean, in the end, what's HFY without humanity? Subscribe to keep it this way. My name is the VoiceOgre, and let's begin.
The Chalcidian herald stood motionless in the Dominion Spire conference chamber. Clad in starched silks, over-polished, ebon plating, it kept its back to the junior administrators, and its head held high, forcing them to look up. Its stillness, born of a high-gravity world, made it an organic statue. Around the table, Administrator Ito shifted his weight, and another tapped the stylus. The herald's absolute composure magnified their small movements. Administrator Kenjiro Ito cleared his throat. The room's sound dampeners absorbed the cough, leaving a ringing silence.
Your Excellency,
He began, the words sharp.
we've reviewed the Imperium's revised tribute tithe. With respect, a 40% levy on our total energy output is untenable.
The herald tilted its head, a slow rotation on its segmented neck. A small disc floating near its throat translated its resonant hum.
The term is Stabilization Contribution, Administrator. The Imperium provides access to the Ringway network and maintains a galactic peace. Stability has a cost.
That's a death sentence,
Countered Safia Murad, the off-world consortium's head.
40% means planetary-scale blackouts. It means shutting off the Enceladus weather regulators and the Ceres hydroponics. Our entire medical supply chain, which depends on isotopes synthesized in high-energy reactors, it will collapse.
A regrettable, though required resource allocation.
The herald hummed. Its eyes, pits of matte black that absorbed all light, remained fixed forward.
The central worlds require these assets to maintain equilibrium.
Equilibrium?
Ito shot back.
You're asking us to choose between heat and medicine.
The herald remained motionless.
The Imperium asks only for compliance. Refusal invites other outcomes. With access to the Ringway, your off-world colonies will suffer isolation. Famine would manifest within a year. Your supply chains would do more than collapse. They would vanish. The decision remains yours.
It gave a slight, formal bow.
The first shipment is due in 30 days. The Imperium anticipates cooperation.
With that, the herald turned and strode from the room, the heavy blast door sealed with a pneumatic sigh. Murad tapped her compad, the sharp clicks rippling through the vacuum it left.
Paying it would destroy us,
she whispered, her voice cracking under the strain.
Fighting them is suicide,
Ito countered, slumped in his chair.
Their sector fleet alone has 200 capital ships. We have 20 cruisers, most a generation out of date. That's a slaughter.
The Imperium's ultimatum pressed down on them in silence. General Armitage Graves, a man whose face mapped old battles and lost campaigns, cut through the despair. He had kept his own counsel throughout the meeting. He keyed a command into the table's central holoprojector.
We have another option.
The classified file icon appeared in the air, labeled with 3 words, Project Dead Reckoning. A grainy surveillance photo materialized beside it. A woman with short-cropped dark hair, a smirk on her lips, and a challenge in her eyes.
A contingency plan,
Graves said.
high risk, insane, probably.
It centers on a piece of archaeotech we acquired from a disabled pirate vessel a few years back.
The spindle.
Murad looked from the file to Graves, her brow furrowed, then her expression shifted to disbelief.
A spindle? This Ringway tech, ancient, it's unstable.
A key,
Graves corrected.
one that rewrites a network's routing tables. In the right hands, it turns the entire galactic supply chain into a weapon.
Ito leaned forward.
Whose hands?
The muscle in Graves' jaw jumped.
Only one pilot alive has the right neurological profile and the nerve to even try. She was one of yours once. Disgraced. Now she runs scrap and contraband out of Orbelt.
He paused.
Jenna North.
Jenna North debated theology with a dockmaster whose face resembled a collapsed nebula. Their dispute centered on a manifest entry for ballast. Borsk, a thick-set, handed dockmaster, insisted the term blatantly misclassified the plasma cannon bolted to the Audacity's ventral hull. It provides stability during high-G maneuvers, Jenna argued, leaning against the grimy customs kiosk. That's the literal definition of a ballast, Borsk. I can show you the engineering specs.
The specs that you faked last night?
Borsk's wide, nicotinating membrane swept across his eyes.
Captain North, I'm here to enforce port regulations and admire your creativity on my own time. Unregistered weapon modification. It's a 5,000 credit fine.
5,000? Jenna scoffed. For a safety feature? That's outrageous. I'll give you 2, and I'll throw in that case of genuine Martian whiskey you've been eyeing. Borsk considered this, his jowly features rumpling. Before he could answer, 2 figures in crisp gray Terran command uniforms stepped into the low cantina light. Their presence, starkly out of place, silenced conversations and stilled glasses. Patrons bowed their heads over tables, gazes dropping to drinks. Jenna sighed. Don't tell me. Expired docking permit? The lead officer, a captain with gray-streaked hair and a rigid jaw, stopped before her.
Jenna North.
Depends who's asking, she said, keeping her eyes fixed on Borsk. We'll call it 2,500, Borsk, and the whiskey's yours.
Terran Command is asking,
the officer said, his tone flat.
General Graves sent us. He wants to offer you a job.
Jenna turned, a faint smile on her lips. A job? Last I checked, Terran Command wanted to offer me a court-martial and 10 years in a labor colony. What's the catch? Did someone lose the officer's latrine key again? The captain's expression was stone. He placed a compad on the counter.
The catch is that the Chalcius Imperium is about to strangle Earth to death.
He slid the pad toward her.
They're offering you a full pardon and command of a fleet.
Jenna read, and her smile hardened into a thin line. She scanned the tribute demand, and she narrowed her eyes. She glanced over the energy quotas, the resource levies, the biogenetic tithes. The numbers represented shuttered hospitals, frozen homes, and starving colonies. When she looked up, her expression was cold and appraising. So this is the plan, she said, gesturing to the file. You want me to take a fleet of patched-together freighters, hide a notoriously unstable piece of alien tech on my ship, and then use it to snarl the most complex logistics network in the galaxy. She laughed, a sharp bark. That's a suicide run. You know that, right? We know the risks. The second officer, a younger lieutenant, chimed in. You have no idea, Jenna shot back, tapping the compad. Your plan has at least 3 distinct failure points, each one guaranteed to kill the entire crew. First of all, your signal spoofing is clumsy. Imperial patrols will spot you before you clear the first interchange. Second, you failed to account for the network's automated failsafes, which will purge any unauthorized routing commands within minutes. And third, and most importantly, she trailed off, scanning the personnel file that appeared on the screen. She drew a sharp breath. The file belonged to the Weaver, the specialist required to operate the spindle. A young man, barely out of his teens, his gaze fixed on something distant. Sian Misra. Sian, she whispered. The acrid smell of a fried simulator console hit her. A phantom scent from years ago, followed by Liam's laugh. You know him? The captain asked. I knew his older brother, Liam. Yeah, he was a pilot I mentored back at the academy. Her words were sharp. He died during the initial spindle activation tests. The feedback fried his cerebral pathways. She pushed the compad back across the counter. Find someone else.
He's the only other candidate with the required neurological profile, the captain said. He volunteered.
Jenna stared at the young man's picture. The image showed a reflection of Liam's face, his easy grin, his boundless optimism. She remembered the first day they told her he died. Another casualty of a secret project walled off by layers of secrecy. The project now Earth's last desperate hope. She remained silent for a full minute. After a full minute, she met the officer's eyes.
Fine, she said. I'll do it. But I have conditions. We're listening, the captain said. Complete autonomy. My ships, my crew. I run the operation my way. I report to myself. You give me the keys and you get out of my way. Agreed? Jenna turned back to the dockmaster. Borsk, she announced, her tone crisp. The price just went up. I'll need that cannon armed and combat ready. And you can keep the whiskey. I'll need it. Assembling a fleet to take on an empire meant haggling over profit margins. Jenna's first stop was the Floating Scrappers Guild headquarters, a station cobbled together from a dozen decommissioned freighter hulls. She stood across a scarred metal table from Bram Kovic, the guild's leader. She was a Hanid like Borsk. While the dockmaster was soft and fleshy, Bram was all corded muscle, his stillness a promise of violence. He listened to her pitch, his massive four-fingered hands resting on the table, his nicotinating membranes sweeping across his eyes in a slow rhythm. Let me understand,
Bram said when she finished, his voice a low rumble like shifting rock.
You want my captains to risk their ships, their cargo, and their lives on a plan to disrupt Imperial trade.
Not disrupt, Jenna corrected. Control. Once we sever the capital from the network, the Imperium loses its ability to collect tolls. Think of it, Bram. A toll-free ringway. What would that be worth to your people? She slid a compad across the table, displaying projections of shipping costs under the current system versus a decentralized one. The stark contrast in the figures spoke for itself. Bram studied the pad.
My people are pragmatic, Captain North. They care about this period's profits. Revolutions are for the next generation.
Well, then sell it to them as the biggest salvage operation in history, Jenna countered. When that blockade goes up, we will strand thousands of ships, billions of credits and cargo ready for the claiming. I can offer your guild legally backed first priority salvage rights to every imperial and corporate asset that we secure. Bram's membrane swept again, and this time the rhythm quickened.
You have the authority to grant that?
I have complete autonomy, Jenna said. He rumbled a low sound of consideration and committed only to a second meeting. A start. Her next meeting was with the Free Colonies Coalition, a group of humanitarian aid fleets. Their leader, a woman named Soraya, recoiled from the plan. You want to create a galactic traffic jam? Do you know how many medical convoys and food shipments you'll be disrupting? People will die. People are already dying, Jenna said. She brought up the Imperial projections for the famine that would hit the fringe worlds, the ones now cut off by the redirected resources needed to pay Earth's tribute. Your relief runs are a bandage on a sucking chest wound. My plan is cauterization. Now it's ugly and it will hurt, but parking your ships around Chalice's Prime for a few weeks will save more lives than 1,000 aid runs. Your ships can ferry supplies for a dying system, or they can help us build a new one. Soraya stared at the famine projections, the conviction draining from her face. She agreed to join, but made it clear she did so under protest. The final piece was the easiest. Jenna put out a call on the shadow nets, the encrypted channels used by pirates, smugglers, and mercenaries. She offered pardons, salvage rights, and the chance to give the Imperium a black eye. Within hours, her old network lit up with confirmations. They were in. The new Coalition fleet's first summit, held in the Audacity's cavernous cargo bay, was a shouting match waiting for a spark. Bram Kovic and a pirate commander named Orso were nose to nose, arguing loudly over a decade-old dispute involving a stolen asteroid claim. Soraya's people stood in a tight cluster, as if they'd wandered into the wrong party. Jenna let it simmer for a minute, then drew her sidearm and fired a single shot into a nearby power junction. A shower of sparks rained down, and the bay's emergency lights kicked in with a low hum. The shouting died. Everyone turned to her. Good, Jenna said, cutting through the ringing. Now I have your attention. Look around. We've got scrappers, pirates, idealists, and smugglers. The Imperium has screwed over every single one of us at some point. That's our common ground. So set aside your old grudges.
Forget your turf wars. For the next few weeks, one thing matters, and only one thing. We fly to Chalcis Prime, we park our ships, we break their network, and we force them to the table. Stick to the plan, collect your pay, and go home. Any questions?
The bay was still. The only sound the emergency lights hum.
Good, she said again. Get to your ships. We launch in 6 hours.
The call came on a channel dormant for 5 years. The encryption was military grade, layered with civilian protocols so thick it appeared as background static to anyone except its intended recipient. She designed it herself, back when she thought her future involved a quiet life on a terraformed moon instead of a pirate fleet's command chair. Ishan Rao's face materialized on her private channel, a face from a past life. It looked older. The lines around his eyes deepened. The uniform of an Imperial liaison for Earth's sector hung on him like a cage.
Dinner?
He said, his voice as formal and controlled as ever.
Long time, Ishan,
she replied, her tone professional.
I hear you're climbing the corporate ladder? Something like that.
His strained smile left his eyes cold.
I know what Earth is planning. A direct assault would be a massacre.
Thank you for the tactical analysis, Jenna said dryly. Anything else?
Stop this,
he pleaded, his composure frayed.
They will crush you. They will make an example of Earth.
Jenna leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. Why are you telling me this, Ishan? Trying to clear your conscience before your employers glass my home planet? He faltered, the Imperial's official neutrality gone, replaced by the earnest man she remembered.
Because I saw what they did to Kaleni.
Kaleni 4, a small agricultural world that tried to renegotiate its tribute tithe 3 years ago. The official report said their climate regulator suffered a catastrophic system-wide failure.
Their only weapon was a single command, Jenna,
he said, and he dropped his voice to a whisper.
Entered into a logistics terminal 1,000 light years away. They just moved the maintenance convoy. The world suffocated in 3 months. The death toll was planetary. The method was purely administrative.
He leaned closer to the comm pickup, his eyes wide.
I can help. They monitor my official credentials constantly. They're a death trap. But I have ghost access from an old posting. Pre-consolidation survey corps. They dissolved the department 15 years ago, but the access keys remain active.
Jenna stared at his image, her own face still. This could be a trap, a way for the Imperium to get an inside agent. But the look in his eyes, that was real.
Why?
She asked flatly. Why now?
Because I thought I could change the system from within,
he said.
I was wrong. The system resists all change, so it must break.
As a sign of good faith, he sent a data packet.
The master override codes for the Eridanis interchange. It's a start. It's proof that I'm serious.
Jenna ran the codes through her ship's decryption software. The codes proved authentic, wrapped in an archaic encryption she last saw at the Academy. She looked back at the screen.
Jen,
he started, using the old nickname, then caught himself.
Be careful, Captain.
The connection went dead. Jenna stared at the blank screen for a long time. Jen. The old nickname hung in the air. The tribute payment fleet was a motley collection of Jenna's most reliable ships, their hulls artfully distressed, appearing as overburdened cargo haulers. They dropped out of ring space at the Eridanis interchange, a nexus of 6 gates buzzing with commercial traffic. Patrol drones traced in different patterns between the gates, and commercial traffic flowed accordingly to the day's published schedules. Deep in the Audacity's engine room, shielded by lead layers and humming capacitors, Sian Mishra strapped himself into the weaver's rig, a conductive mesh cap covering his head, its delicate filaments brushing against his temples. He closed his eyes.
You ready, C?
Jenna asked through his earpiece, her voice calm and steady.
Ready,
he breathed. He reached out and placed his hands on the spindle, a complex gyroscope of interlocking rings covered in glowing protein-based circuitry. The moment he made contact, the universe dissolved. On the Audacity's bridge, the Ringway network's three-dimensional projection shuddered. The transit corridor's crisp lines wavered, then shifted.
Heart rate 140 and climbing,
the medtech reported.
His brain's a wildfire, Captain. We're past the red line.
Jenna watched the hologram, her grip tight on the console. Cian once described his work as trying to untangle a knot made of space-time, each thread humming with the star's energy.
I've got it.
Cian's voice, strained and distant, crackled over the comm.
The primary outbound. I'm pulling it.
The holographic line represented the main trade route to the Silex resort world, stretched, thinned, and then snapped free. Cian grunted with the effort, sweat beading on his forehead. He focused, grabbing the loose end and connecting it to a new destination, a dead-end survey system, empty and forgotten.
Done,
he gasped. A moment later, a fleet of gleaming luxury yachts, belonging to a Chalcidian noble with a penchant for gambling, jumped through the Eridanus gate. They expected Silex's pristine breaches. They found only the deep chill of vacuum. Their panicked hails flooded the local comms channels. On the Audacity, Jenna grinned.
Phase 1 complete.
Cian, disconnect. The connection severed. In the engine room, Cian slumped into his chair, a thin trickle of blood running from his nose. He blinked, his focus lost. He looked past the medtech toward the observation window where Jenna's face was visible.
Hey, Liam,
he murmured, a confused smile on his face.
How we doing?
The medtech met Jenna's gaze over the comm, his jaw tight. The grin vanished from her face. A single encrypted message appeared on her console. The message came from Bram's command ship. Impressive. The order was simple. A single word. Begin. Across a dozen sectors, from the Central World's industrial hubs to the Rim's mining outposts, the Coalition's fleet's ships, positioned near major ring gates, acted on the same chronometer mark. They uploaded a small, innocuous packet of code into the local gate control systems. The code, a string of commands from Ishan, disguised as a routine diagnostic update. Simultaneously, Cian plugged back into the spindle. This time, he targeted and held 6 primary trade conduits carrying 90% of all interstellar freight. On the bridge, the lights flickered as the spindle drew power, and the air grew cold. 2 attacks converged. Ishan's payload exploited a flaw in the gate controller's diagnostic software, flooding their systems with thousands of fake, high-priority flight plan updates. Each update designated a new, urgent destination for a ship already in transit. The automated systems, designed for efficiency, were overwhelmed. Programmed to default in a crisis, the system rerouted every ship, from the massive grain haulers to the tiny courier vessels to the entire network's central nexus. The one place theoretically able to sort out the mess, Chalcis Prime. In the Imperial capital's orbital traffic control center, a junior controller stared at his screen, then blinked and stared again. The arrival board, normally a steady, predictable stream of green icons, became a waterfall.
Sir,
he stammered, turning to his supervisor.
We have a problem.
The supervisor glanced over.
What is it, rookie? A freighter missed its docking window?
No, sir. We have all the freighters.
Within the hour, the managed orbital lanes around Chalcis Prime devolved into a celestial parking lot. Thousands of ships, each broadcasting a valid, high-priority flight plan, clogged the space around the planet. Inbound and outbound traffic ground to a halt. The controllers screamed for instructions while command remained silent. The Imperium's heart, its capital city, found itself surrounded. Its own supply chain became the siege. Lord Comptroller Heston Mavros stood in the Imperial High Command strategy room and listened to the generals shout. They were men of action, men who understood fleets, trajectories, and kill ratios.
Deploy the 3rd and 5th battle groups,
Admiral Koth bellowed, jabbing a finger at the orbital chaos's holographic display.
Blast the path to that chunk and find out who's responsible.
Mavros tuned them out. He fixed his attention on the data streams flowing across his personal slate, scanning text columns. He focused on their manifests, ignoring their positions. Grain from Kileni, medical isotopes from the Proxima reactors, raw durasteel from the Enceladus shipyards. The manifest showed only civilian traffic. All of it legitimate. All of it, until an hour ago, destined for somewhere else. He held up a hand. The small gesture's authority cut through the noise.
Your guns are useless, Admiral.
Mavros said, his voice a calm monotone.
You would be firing on Imperial-flagged vessels carrying supplies vital to outer sectors. The political and economic fallout would be catastrophic.
He turned to a communications officer.
Quarantine all external comms from the blockading fleet. I want them isolated.
Then he addressed the council.
This isn't a battle, Admiral. It's a seizure. They're using our own regulations, our own network against us. Every ship out there is a civilian hauler following a valid flight plan. Our strength has become our weakness.
He paused, sweeping his gaze over the military command's baffled faces.
They have turned our supply chain into a noose.
He typed a query into his console. The system cross-referenced the routing changes' unique temporal signature with known archaeotech profiles. The result was instantaneous.
They have a spindle,
he announced.
And someone who knows how to use it.
He looked at the data again. A corner of his mouth twitched upwards in a brief, dry smirk. The Supreme Chancellor, appearing via hologram, made the decision.
Lord Comptroller, this is a logistical crisis. I am granting you full emergency authority to resolve it. Do what is necessary.
Mavros gave a slight nod.
Of course.
Bram Kovic was calculating his crew's remaining power reserves when the first message arrived from the Galactic Insurers Guild, a corporate entity with deep ties to the Imperium. Notice, we avoided your policy under Clause 9, Section 4, illegal route deviation. A moment later, a second alert flashed. The commodity markets were in freefall. Unprocessed grains' price was plummeting. The final blow was an imperial edict, broadcast on all official channels.
By the Lord Comptroller's order, vessels and cargo currently occupying prohibited orbital positions around Chelsea's Prime I hereby declare legally forfeit. I have frozen all associated financial accounts pending Imperial review.
Bram stared at the screen. Stranded, uninsured, their cargo worthless, their credit lines locked. With their credit lines locked, buying fuel, paying his crew, or bribing a port official became futile. His private comm channel exploded with his captain's panicked voices, all shouting at once.
They locked our accounts! They've seized our freight! This is a disaster! We have to surrender!
Bram keyed his fleet-wide channel, his deep voice cutting through the noise.
Hold positions. I will speak with Captain North.
He hailed the Audacity. When Jenna's face appeared, he scowled, the muscles around his jaw corded with tension.
Your plan was smart, Captain, he said, the words heavy. His move was smarter. We're crippled. My captains are about to mutiny. What's your next move? Because we're losing ships by the hour.
The emergency meeting in the Audacity's cargo bay began with Orso, the pirate commander, yelling and slamming his fist on the table.
Instead of sitting here like targets in a shooting gallery, we should be raiding those fat merchant ships. 3 of my captains are already trying to negotiate a separate surrender,
Bram stated, crossing his arms over his massive chest.
They have families. A revolution would bankrupt them.
Soraya, the humanitarian leader, looked pale.
We must disperse. We refuse to be party to this. It is escalating beyond anything that we agreed to.
Just then, an alert flashed on the cargo bay's main display. It showed them a live feed of one of Bram's ships, the stray dog breaking from the fleet. It broadcast a frantic open hail to Chelsea's Prime traffic control.
This is the freighter Stray Dog requesting permission to surrender.
Before the captain could finish, a sleek, black Imperial Customs drone detached from a nearby orbital platform. It moved with a silent, unnerving speed. It latched onto the Stray Dog's hull. An automated plasma cutter sliced into the ship's cargo bay. A flat, synthesized voice broadcast on all Coalition channels. Vessel and cargo forfeited under Imperial Edict 77-Alpha. All assets legally seized. The drone towed the crippled, unresponsive ship toward an impound dock. The bay grew quiet, every eye fixed on the empty space where the stray dog was. Jenna stepped into the room's center. "There's your surrender," she said. "Surrender gets you this. Running means that they will hunt you down. This is our only path." She let that sink in. "He was clever," she admitted. "He left our ships intact, but he attacked our bank accounts. He knows what you all value." She looked at Orso. "You want plunder? A battle group that will hunt you down before your first jump?" She turned to Soraya. "You want to run? They'll strip your ships for parts. They view idealists and pirates with the same contempt." At last she faced Bram. "What has the Imperium ever offered you besides predatory tolls and crushing regulations? They will take your ships, your cargo, and they will throw you in a labor camp. You just watch them do it." She surveyed the shaken leaders. "His primary weapon is numbers on a screen. Illusions. We hold the physical space. We have the vessels. We have fuel in our tanks. We just have to hold." Bram was the first to break the silence. He looked at his fellow scrappers, his expression grim, then back at Jenna.
"She's right," he rumbled. "Surrender guarantees our destruction."
He turned to his captains on the comm.
"We're initiating the scrappers net. We link our ships. We share power, life support, everything we have. We will outlast them."
The solution, born of decades of hardship, went into effect immediately. For now, they held. Ishan Rao walked through the gleaming, sterile halls of the comptroller's building on Chalcis Prime. Security patrols, once rare, now stood at every major intersection. His colleagues, normally eager to trade gossip, now averted their gazes, their faces tight. He was the liaison from the rebellious planet, a known quantity under suspicion. His destination was the Central Archives, a repository of every public document, engineering schematic, and census report in the Imperium. His authorized visit, a routine request to review historical trade agreements, gave him a 10-minute window. He found a secluded terminal and slid a data wafer into the port. He downloaded a key, the single, heavily encrypted decryption key linked to a specific directory path within the public archives, a breadcrumb he placed months ago. The progress bar crawled across his screen. 5%, 10%. His heart hammered in his throat. Every footstep in the hallway sounded like an approaching guard. 30%. He heard familiar voices approaching. Mavros.
"The resource models show a critical failure within 72 hours if the blockade holds,"
a subordinate was saying. Mavros replied calmly.
"The models show resources, but they omit intent."
They were turning the corner. 80%. 90. The download completed. Ishan ejected the wafer, slipped it into his pocket, and terminated the connection just as Mavros and his security detail came into view. Ishan stepped away from the terminal and walked toward them, forcing a calm, professional expression onto his face. He gave a slight nod.
"Lord Comptroller?"
Mavros stopped. He studied Ishan, his gaze long and analytical, an X-ray examination. For a terrifying second, Ishan was certain Mavros knew. Then Mavros gave a minute gesture to one of his aides, a flick of his fingers. The aide fell back, melting into the flow of functionaries in the hallway. Mavros continued walking.
"Well?"
He said, a simple acknowledgement.
"Keep me apprised of the Earth situation."
As Ishan walked away, his back prickling, he overheard Mavros murmur to another aide.
"Check his legacy permissions. The main system is clean. The breach must be coming from an older network."
He had the data. And now he had a tail. "A census relay satellite?" Jenna asked, looking at the schematic Orso's tech expert had pulled up. "That's the target." "According to your inside man, yes," the tech replied. "It's a decommissioned model. It's part of an older system. It's in a decaying orbit, on low power standby. It has a physical maintenance node that's still live. It's a backdoor." Jenna studied the satellite's orbital path. "It passes through Chalcis Prime's primary sensor grid every 32 minutes. That gives us a window." She looked at Orso. "Your infiltration team. Can they do it?" Orso grinned, a flash of metallic teeth.
"My crew can spacewalk onto a moving warship in the middle of a battle.
A dead satellite is a vacation. A small shuttle, its transponder broadcasting a common orbital debris signature, detached from Orso's ship. It matched orbits with the tumbling satellite in the planet's shadow. Jenna coordinated the operation from the Audacity's bridge, her voice a calm stream of instructions in the two-person infiltration team's ears. You're approaching the maintenance panel. You have 3 minutes until you're in sensor range. Get the cover. Cover's open, bypassing the security lock now. On the bridge, the crew held their breath, knuckles white on their consoles. They were using a key from Ishan to open a lock designed by the Imperium. If he was wrong, or if this was a trap, alarms would scream across the capital. We're in. The comm crackled. Jacking in the payload now. Jenna watched the chronometer. Upload and get out. You have 90 seconds. The data packet was tiny, but its contents were monumental. A simple administrative command to perform a system-wide clerical correction based on a newly discovered dataset. Upload complete. We're clear. The shuttle boosted away just as the satellite drifted into Chalcis Prime's sunlight. All across Chalcis Prime, in the Ecumenopolis's unlit, unmapped underlevels, personal compads chimed. Millions of them. The underclass, the hidden population deliberately omitted from the official census to conserve resources and maintain an illusion of prosperity, just received full citizenship. Automated systems, recognizing millions of new citizens, instantly requisitioned resources for them. Food, housing, medical aid, power. The demand slammed into the capital's meticulously balanced supply chains, which buckled and broke under the stubborn, immense load. Automated transports diverted food from the upper city arcologies to the newly established distribution centers in the underlevels. The system rerouted power grids, causing rolling blackouts in the elite's pristine spires. Heston Mavros watched his predictive models collapse into chaos. The neat lines of resource allocation and probability curves dissolved into a frantic, unpredictable scribble. The civil unrest, the food riots in the upper sectors, the power failures, they were symptoms. The disease was truth.
They attacked our census while leaving our infrastructure physically intact,
he said to his aides, his voice a low whisper of dawning comprehension.
They armed the poor with bureaucracy, using the Imperium's own laws and automated welfare systems to cripple the capital.
His aides presented him with a final contingency, a plan so dangerous they discussed it only in theoretical terms. The Purge Reboot.
It involves using the capital's master spindle,
a terrified technician explained,
to send a chain reaction energy pulse through the local gates. The feedback will sever all external connections and force a systems-wide network reset. It would break the blockade.
What are the risks?
Mavros asked, still fixated on the dying models.
The pulse is unstable, Lord Comptroller. Some gates will likely collapse, severing entire sectors permanently.
Mavros weighed the variables. The potential loss of entire sectors, cut off from the network forever. The galactic economies collapse. He weighed it against the alternative, Chalcis Prime's imminent, certain failure. He turned away from the screen, his face set with certainty.
The heart's function is to pump blood to the body. If we must cauterize some capillaries to save it, so be it.
He spoke.
Initiate the Purge Reboot.
The call from Ishan came in a frantic burst of encrypted data, overriding all other channels. His face was pale, his office background lit by flashing red emergency lights. A discordant alarm blared.
They're doing it, Jenna!
He shouted over the noise.
The Purge Reboot! They'll collapse the network!
Ishan, what are you talking about?
Mavros! He's using the master spindle to send a pulse through the gates. The technicians are saying that it could cause the total collapse of...
A loud crash echoed from his end. His office door burst open. Imperial security flooded in. Ishan gave her one last resolute look before someone violently cut the connection. Jenna swore, slamming her fist on the console.
Tech! What's a Purge Reboot?
Her chief engineer's face appeared on the screen, ashen.
It's a doomsday command, Captain. A brute force reset. They'll overload the local gates with raw energy. The feedback will collapse the ring-wide network for the entire sector. Permanently. Can we stop it?
The engineer hesitated.
Theoretically, a counterweave. A weaver could build a barrier, twist the network connections into a shield to absorb and dissipate the energy, but the physics, channeling that much power is like damming a supernova. The feedback would be catastrophic.
Jenna understood immediately. She was already running, sprinting through the Audacity's corridors toward the engine room. She found Xian sitting beside the dormant spindle, a strange calm on his face, as if he waited for her. She explained the situation, the physics, the slim chance of success. She told him what the feedback from a weave that powerful would do. Permanent neurological damage, total memory loss, a complete severing from that linear perception of time. Xian looked at her, his eyes, usually distant, clear and focused on her.
You brought me here to fly, Captain,
he said. He reached out and touched the spindle's cool metal.
Let's fly.
Before she could argue, he strapped himself into the rig with sure, deliberate movements, a soldier making his final choice. The central tactical tank on the Audacity's bridge flared, turning from a calm blue to a blinding white. A wave of raw energy, a visual representation of an event that defied physics, erupted from the icon representing Chalcis Prime. Alarms shrieked across the bridge.
"The pulse launched!"
The tactical officer screamed.
"Time to impact, 60 seconds!"
In the engine room, Xian screamed. The sound was one of exertion, the raw, primal cry of a mind pushing against reality's fabric. The spindle glowed with a furious light, shedding waste heat that shimmered in the air. Jenna watched the hologram, her throat tight. Flashes of Xian's perspective came to the ship's internal sensors. A torrent of twisted geometries, of temporal streams flowing backward and forward at once, of light that was also sound. He did more than redirect gates. He pulled on the network's fundamental structure, twisting space-time's corridors into a shield, a buffer, a wall. The energy wave struck his improvised barrier. The Audacity groaned, its frame rocked by spatial distortions. On the bridge, consoles sparked and died. Outside the main viewport, the stable, circular apertures of the nearby ring gates flickered, their forms wavering like a heat haze. In the engine room, Xian convulsed, his body arching against the restraints. But the barrier held. The pulse's white-hot energy washed against his creation, dissipating, its force spent against the intricate knot he had tied in space-time. Then, the feedback hit him. The lights in the spindle flickered once, then went dark, its delicate circuits burnt out. The holographic display on the bridge fizzled and died. The alarms fell silent. Jenna was already moving, running back into the engine room. She found Xian slumped in the chair, motionless. His eyes were open, staring blankly into the unseen distance. The blockade's chaos gave way to a dead quiet. The Purge reboot, though it left the network intact, fried the gates in the capital's immediate vicinity. Chalcis Prime found itself isolated. The Imperial fleet, which prepared to jump in and break the blockade, found itself trapped on the outside, cut off from the capital. The Imperium's heart lay severed from its body. The seat of power, which demanded tribute from Earth, now found itself surrounded, besieged by the silence it once tried to create. A formal request for parley arrived. They would permit a single shuttle to land. Jenna accepted. Brem insisted on coming with her.
I want to see the look on his face,
the big Hanid had rumbled. An honor guard escorted them to the Lord Comptroller's office atop the tallest spire on Chalcis Prime. Haston Mavros stood by the massive transparasteel window, looking out at the dead, silent ring gates that hung in the sky like cosmic tombstones. He looked like a mathematician who spent his life working on a single elegant equation, only to find the answer was chaos. He turned as they entered. The sharp focus in his eyes yielded to a deep exhaustion.
Captain Nord,
he said, his voice a dry rasp.
Your methods were illogical. Your strategy, a sequence of compounding low-probability events. My calculations accounted for fleets and resources, but they omitted human persistence.
We call it stubbornness, Jenna said. She stated her terms. An immediate and permanent end to the tribute tithe system. The creation of a single, independent consortium of species to manage and repair the ringway, and the release of all political prisoners, including a Terran liaison named Ishan Rao. Mavros listened, then gave a single sharp nod.
The Imperium must accept your terms.
He agreed to everything. Before she left, he gestured to a data display. A complex simulation was running, showing the flow of goods through a new decentralized network. A flurry of red alerts flagged critical resource shortfalls in several sectors.
Congratulations, Captain,
Mavros said, his voice flat.
According to my projections, your new decentralized network will trigger systemic famine in 3 sectors within 5 Earth years. You have achieved instability. You've traded one form of chaos for another. I do hope you're ready for the consequences.
Jenna looked at the simulation, then back at the defeated man. We'll figure it out, she said. That's what we do. Several weeks later, the galaxy was a different place. The Chalcis Imperium fractured, its authority shattered. New trade pacts formed. Old alliances were redrawn. On Chalcis Prime, a provisional government led by a newly freed Ishan Rao worked to build something new from the wreckage. Bram Kovic, representing the now powerful Freighters Guild, was a key voice in that government. They came to Jenna on the Audacity, docked at the still quarantined capital.
The ringway is a mess,
Ishan said, getting straight to the point.
Dozens of gates lie damaged. The routing protocols are a nightmare. We need someone to oversee the reconstruction. Someone who understands the system inside and out. Someone who can manage pirates, scrappers, and bureaucrats while maintaining the new peace. We need a harbor master, Bram rumbled, and we think that you're the best person for the job.
Jenna laughed. You want the pirate who broke the system to be the one to fix it? Well, the irony's a bit thick, don't you think?
That's why you're perfect for it,
Ishan said. Before she gave them an answer, she went to the medbay. Sion was still there, sitting by a window, looking out at the stars. He would have moments of clarity, recognizing her and smiling. And then he would look away, and he would talk to his long-dead brother Liam about a flight simulation they'd run yesterday, which was also 10 years ago. He traced a familiar pattern onto the viewport's condensation, the dissolved constellation that spiraled up her own arm. Looking at him, she found her answer. She went back to her office and accepted the job. Days later, she stood in the portmaster's office, the same one where Mavros surrendered. It felt too big, too clean. On the central console was the local sector's 3-dimensional star chart, a tangle of fractured routes and priority warnings. The problem was hers now. She remembered Mavros's final warning. You've traded one form of chaos for another. She sat in the ridiculously large chair, a wry smile forming on her lips. She brought up the comm, keying it to the main Port Authority channel. All right, her voice filled the vast office. First order of business. Run a full diagnostic and audit on all orbital impound lots. Let's see what fell off the back of the freighter. The chaos was hers now. Jenna North leaned back, looked at the map of her new territory, and got to work.